Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Workene. In this video record, I'm going to talk about scope of public administrations. Here we have a brainstorming questions. So, stop here, read this brainstorming question and try to share with us, your experience on these specific issues. The question said like this: what activity and function follow within the scope of public administration in modern states? What is the responsibility of the states? What is the responsibility of the governments? Or list of the responsibilities? What social, economical, political, and administrative issue fall within the scope of public administration? How does decentralization affect the scope of public administration at national, regional, and local level? What social, economical, political, and administrative issues falls within the scope of public administration? So these are four brainstorming questions. So you need to pause here and think or just share with us your experiences, your superior knowledge on the scope of public administration. Mainly, the scope of public administration means the coverage of public administration. The coverage of public administration, or simply means it is a list of duties and responsibilities that we are expecting from the public administration, that is from the government. Right? That is the scope of the government. What we are expecting from the government are all included under the scope of public administration. So the scope of public administration is broad and continuously expanding. From beginning, the list of activities that we are expecting from the government are many. Nowadays, it is continuously increasing. The responsibility of the government, the role of the government, and the expectation of citizens from the government is continuously increasing. Simply, the demand is increasing, and the government are the one who are expected to supply it through public administrations, right? So what government does depend on what the people expect from it, right? What the government actually does and the list of the responsibility that we are expecting from the government depend on what the people are expecting from the government. If the expectation of the people is not that much, therefore the responsibility of the government or the scope of public administration is very narrow. But if we are expecting many from the government, then the scope should be wide. For example, in the past, people expect operation or very little from the government. There is not that much expectation from the government in the past. There is not that much expectations. Therefore, the responsibility of the government was that much. It is like kind of narrow. So the scope of public administration during the past is like narrow, right? Later, people want government to stay out of their affairs, right? More probably 1950s, 1960s, and the 1970s, right? Through the new public management theories, the role of the government is not that much. The new public management theory promotes privatization, and therefore the government should be away from the public services, right? Stay out of their businesses. Therefore, if the role of the government is not that much, therefore our expectation from the government is very few, and therefore the scope of the government is very narrow. But nowadays, people expect service, protection, and support from the government. Therefore, the scope of the government is continuously increasing. As a conclusion, public administration acts as a key mechanism to protect, to promote public interests, balance competing interests, deliver essential public service. See, public administration is an act as a key mechanism for the government to protect and promote public interests, right? To accomplish all these expectations, government needs public administration. And therefore, the coverage of public administration the scope of public administration depends on what we are expecting from the government. So we have here traditional and modern views on the scope of public administration. According to the traditional views, we have aspects or perspectives that we compare scope of public administration during the traditional time under the modern views. Under the traditional views, in terms of scope, public administration was limited to the executive branch of the government. Public administration is just executive branch of the government. Nowadays, public administration include all three branches of the government, which are executive, legislative, and the judiciaries. Therefore, public administration, the scope of public administration is very wide under modern view than the traditional views. In terms of scope, under traditional views, the scope of public administration was only about on organization, personnel, procedure, and execution. Of course, we already mentioned that public administration is only the executive branch of the government. Therefore, under the traditional views, public administration focus on the organization, the personnel, the procedure, and the execution that support them to accomplish what is expected from them, right? The legislative branch of the government made the laws and give them, or the policy, and give them for the executive branch of the government, and the executive branch of the government expected to implement it. So there is not that much influence, according to the traditional views, there is not that much influence of the legislative branch of the government on the public administration, right? But under modern views, from its focus, public administration is government in action. Government in action. It includes the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary branch of the government. Therefore, public administration under modern views is government in action. Government in action, right? The role of the legislative under the traditional views not considered as a part of public administration, right? Legislative was not considered as a part of public administration, but in the modern views, it plays a key role in making laws and shaping administration. Therefore, the legislative is a part of public administration. There is a check and balance. Even if the legislative makes the laws, then they will even check it, whether the implementation is as expected in the policy or not. The role of the judiciary in the traditional public administration ignored in defining the scopes. That means the role of the judiciary is not considered or significant in public administration according to traditional views. But in the modern views, control and limit administration through legal and constitutional reviews, right? Public administration should act according to the law of the land. And the judiciary is the one who check, these things. The main role of the judiciary is interpreting the law, right? And also checking whether each and every activity of the government is according to the rule of the land or not, according to the legal framework of the country or not. In terms of perspective, the traditional view is very narrow and very restrictive, but the modern view is broad and inclusive. In terms of nature, traditional views, administrative execution only. In terms of nature, the scope of public administration under traditional view, administrative execution only. The administrative part only. The administrative, the role of the judiciary, the role of the legislative is not considered under the traditional views. So they don't have any roles, or their role was not defined clearly. So there is no clear roles of legislative and executive in public administration under the traditional views. But in the modern views, integrated system influencing and influenced by all branches of the government. That means there is a check and balances. In the modern view of scope of the public administration. In terms of evaluation, overall evaluation, under the traditional views, considered outdated and limited, but under the modern views, the scope of public administration considered more realistic and comprehensive. So we can compare and contrast the scope of public administration from the traditional views and modern views in these ways. Now let us see scope of public administration as an activity and the scope of public administration as a discipline. Of course, the scope of public administration as an activity include all activity that the government should implement or supply for its citizens. It starts from street cleaning to space exploration. All the activity that expected from the government included under the scope of public administration. So public administration is the main instrument of government in action. Yes, public administration is one of the key instruments for government in action. If there is no public administration, there is no government. Right? It's a kind of public administration is a kind of right hand for the government, or it is a backbone of the government. It is a livelihood. It's the existence of the government determined by public administration. Right? It is a kind of right hand because government actually serve the community through public administrations. And this public administration includes education, health, water, everything, right? So its scope is as wide as the activity of the states. The scope of public administration is as wide as what is expected from the government. For example, in the welfare state, right? In the welfare state, citizens expect from the government different service, health, education, everything, social security and protection. Therefore, the scope of public administration in the welfare state is very wide. It's very wide. Its coverage is very wide. Cover all public activity that starts from space exploration to street cleaning, right? So this is like scope of public administration as an activity, right? As an activity. So the scope of public administration is as wide as the activity of government. Whereas the scope of public administration as a discipline, it includes activities such as planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, and reporting and budgeting. This is a common activity that public institutions accomplish in their daily routines. Planning is about deciding what to do and how to do. Organizing is about structuring roles and responsibilities. Staffing is about recruiting and training personnel. Directing is about giving order and making decisions. Coordinating is about linking activity across departments, reporting and budgeting, financial planning and control. So these are the scope of public administration as a discipline. The previous one is as an activity. It includes all the activity of the government, and the scope of public administration as a discipline include these things. Simply, we can use these words. Otherwise, it's about planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. So we have here a case studies. I hope in this video record you understand about the scope of public administrations. Right, in the coming video record, I will talk about the purpose and element of public administrations. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you in the next video record.